Hi, this video is to talk about test of significance using the p-value approach. So in the previous video, I showed you how to work on the test of significance and test the hypothesis that X is related to Y using the critical value approach. Now let's do the p-value approach, and let's use the same problem. Remember, we have the Armand Pizza's parlor, and we want to know if population influences sales. Why? Because if you want to open a restaurant, you want to be close to a population of students that go and eat in your restaurant so you can increase sales. Okay, so we have many pieces of information. Let's find the information we need. So develop the non-alternative hypothesis. So if we come here, we have the null and alternative hypothesis here. Okay, let me start from scratch again so you can watch one more time. So step number 1, I want to know if B1 is equal to 0, or alternative is if B1 is different than 0. Step number 2 is determine the degrees of freedom, which is sample size minus 2. In our case is 11 minus 2 is equal to 9. Degrees of freedom is 9. Step number 3 is specify the level of significance. Is not given in the problem, but if it's not given in the problem, then you assume that it's 0.05. Okay, that's third step. Now let's compute all this piece of information. So let me go back one slide and let me show you. Let me erase all this. Now we did all this in the previous video, okay? This is all done in the previous video, so I'm not gonna do it again. You can watch the previous video and get these results, okay? And that's very important if I'm giving you only this piece of information. You start with this one first, the MSE, then you compute the standard error of estimate, then you compute the variability of the coefficient, the B1 coefficient, and finally you get the T. Okay, so we did that. Watch the previous video if you don't remember. So let's go back. Okay, I get the T. The T is 9.13. So let's put here is 9.13. Now I have to find the probability that the T statistic you found here is higher or smaller than the significance level. So let's find the probability, and we're going to use this formula, T dist to T. So let me go to Excel. Let's do it here. Equal T dot dist to T, which is to tail. And then is the X, the T value is 9.13, and then we type comma. The degrees of freedom is 9. We compute that. So the probability is this number that maybe you know, maybe you don't know. If you don't know, this number with the E is a scientific number, and it says that in front of this T there is 6 zeros. Okay, so to change that, you can interpret like this, or you can change from general here to number. Then you can increase the number of decimal places, and then you can see that it's a very small number. The question is, okay, we found, let's find the probability of the test statistic. We find the p-value is equal to 0.000. Let's say is smaller than, is smaller 0.000. Let's put 1 here, otherwise it's going to be a big number. Finally, the last step, which is I think step 6, compare the test statistic probability, the p-value, with the level of significance. So is this p-value smaller than the alpha level? Yes, it is very small, is way smaller. So because it is smaller than the alpha level, we reject the null hypothesis. So if I reject the null hypothesis, I conclude the same thing I conclude using the other approach, that B1 is different than 0. And if it is different than 0, then there is a relationship between the student population in this problem and sales. Okay, so that's the test of significance using the p-value approach. And I'm going to stop here and prepare and work in another video about how to do that in Excel.